Overwatch is a game that lends itself to ridiculous, death-defying, and occasionally outright absurd highlight plays and standout moments, and over the 7 years of Overwatch Esports, there are plenty that fans still talk about even today. With the Overwatch League's general health being called into question more and more, and the future of the esport being thrown firmly into the air, we figured now was a good time to dig out the highlight reels of old and recall some of the best moments from every year in competitive Overwatch. So from 2015 all the way to last year, these are the most iconic moments that made Overwatch Esports what it is today. And make sure you drop your own picks down in the comments. 2015, Clump 5k, okay? No prize money, a hand-tracked format, and one of the biggest betas in modern gaming, the first Fish Sticks Invitational showcased some of the earliest competitive Overwatch to be played. And it would be Quake Guys Redux managing to slam the brakes on eventual winners, not Enigma, that would cement them as having one of the first truly great highlight plays in competitive Overwatch history. Not Enigma barreled down the last checkpoint of Watchpoint Gibraltar with around 7 minutes and 45 seconds left in their time bank. Well, we've all been there. In a Hail Mary style last stand, ID catches 5 of the Team Fortress 2 professionals in Zarya's Graviton Surge, metaphorically passing the ball to one of his 2 DPS, who just so happened to have their ultimates ready to rain merry hell down onto Not Enigma. In the end, it would be Clamp OK who would catch the ball and dribble it down the court for a slam dunk, with 5 kills coming from Cassidy's Deadeye to give Quake Guys Redux a bit more room to work with. Sure, it's something we've seen a million times since, but back then, this was top tier play. Sadly, this moment wouldn't matter too much in the long run. There would be no climactic underdog hold from Quake Guys Redux, as Not Enigma quickly rallied and advanced through the bracket without losing a map, setting themselves up as the de facto Overwatch team to beat. But that 5k would live long in the memory and gets the nod from us. 2016, Team Envious makes history. To be honest, no one really thought Team Envious would actually make history. Yes, they held a 57-0 win record and were featured in a number of large-scale events, but the majority of those victories were online, and they were never really tested in the cauldron of a LAN event. So to see them hoist a trophy, not only with an emergency substitute in tow, but also as the first to do it on South Korean soil is nothing short of legendary. Team Envious were a staple team in the Overwatch esports space by 2016, but with the entire South Korean region of Overwatch staring them down, their European rivals and tournament favourite Rogue choosing them first in the group draw, and internal discord that left them without a starting player in the middle of the event, it's safe to say there were some absolutely massive hurdles that Envious would have to somehow jump over to even make a half-decent playoffs run. Their success was facilitated by the unlikely rise of Mickey, and the various role swaps and the meta changing might have had something to do with it, but whatever it was, Overwatch's original juggernauts would sweep Africa Freaks blue in the finale of OGN's Overwatch Apex Season 1 and place their names firmly in the Overwatch esports history books. 2017, Runaway punched their ticket. The entire saga of Overwatch's Runaway deserves a Hollywood adaptation. You see, it all started as a self-funded dream of 2 South Korean parents donning pink sweaters as esports jerseys. There would be plenty of twists and turns on the Runaway rollercoaster ride, but it's their upset victory over Lunatic High to make top 4 in Apex Season 2 that steals the show. In one corner was South Korean esports royalty in Lunatic High. Not only were they more experienced, but they were also one of, if not the strongest team in South Korea, and few could stand up to their skill ceiling and experience on their day. Then there was Runaway, a team that was defined by its role as an underdog, led by their Genji ace Haxel. They were out to prove that in Overwatch, anyone can beat anyone. After advancing from their group as the 2nd seed, Runaway's hopes were pretty grim, being put into Group A, which featured Team Envious, Lunatic High, and Kongdu Unsea. Not only did they manage to top that group with some absolutely clutch performances, but they came within a single map of actually beating Lunatic High again in the grand finals, before the favourites finally managed to deliver on their potential and broke Runaway hearts, coming back from 3-1 down to clutch out a 4-3 victory. All that said, it's the celebration that gets the nod from us for its most iconic moment. Runner's energetic celebration as he realises his playoff tickets are booked is not only a massive moment in Overwatch history, but it should grace the halls of esports legend. 2018, enter Prophet. Prophet will likely go down as modern Overwatch's greatest player of all time, and rightly so. But it would be his heroics in the grand finals of the inaugural season of the Overwatch League that would shock the world. 2018 would begin with the stars aligning for London Spitfire. Cloud9, the parent organisation of the Spitfire, would not only sign Kongdu Pantera, but they would also sign Apex Season 4 winners GC Busan, creating the first, best, and arguably only super team Overwatch has ever seen. While they would coast on the early success, the latter months of 2018's Overwatch League season would see the Spitfire suffer enough losses to raise serious questions around their playoff chances. Seen as an outside threat to the likes of New York Excelsior and Philadelphia Fusion, London rallied behind Profit and dispatched all contenders as they reached out for the inaugural crown of the Overwatch League. Led by an inspired Profit in the grand finals, London cemented their places as icons of the Overwatch League. 2019, Architect takes the high road. Architect might just be the most unsung star of the Overwatch League era. Few doubted his ability, but he's not always talked about in the same breath as some of the more obvious legends of the game. But his creative and heads-up play in the grand finals of the 2019 Overwatch League cements him in the history books. While Architect's playtime was limited at that point, the former Genji maestro found some newfound life in the rigidity of the GOAT's metagame with Bastion. After Overwatch's role lock was implemented, the prevailing strategy was to abuse the sustain that Orisa and Sigma would give your team. As for offensive pressure, teams would rotate between set players with Orisa's Halt and picks like Doomfist and Reaper, as well as using Mei's Ice Wall to lock enemies into Bastion's sightlines, making them easy pickings and a simple fight ender if done effectively. And as the shock neared the end of Iconvola, Architect would deliver perhaps the most iconic set play in Overwatch League history, pulling off a pitch-perfect rocket jump to reach a peculiar high ground on a chandelier hanging from the castle roof. Architect found the perfect position to provide Overwatch for his team, laying down some intense fire and grabbing some crucial damage and picks, allowing his team to finish escorting the payload at breakneck pace and secure the objective. It would be a bold play at any point, but to execute this kind of creativity in the heat of a grand final with everything on the line, impressive isn't even the word. 2020, Philly leans on EQO. The summer months and the Overwatch League have always had a contentious relationship. Somehow, somewhere, an underdog rises up from the maelstrom and manages to make a grand entrance right before the playoff race begins. And EQO's flash of brilliance nearly secured the Philadelphia Fusion that underdog role and the summer stage title in 2020. Facing a near Herculean impasse, EQO had to pull off the unthinkable to grant the Philadelphia Fusion a few extra minutes on the clock to put away the surging Paris Eternal. Entering the fight a player down, EQO had to build around 40% more ultimate charge if they even had a chance to swing the skirmish in their favour. Not only did he manage to build his Dragon Blade in time, but he managed to get 2 kills with it and then 2 more after to carry Philadelphia across the checkpoint. It might not carry as much grand final or playoff weight as some of the other entries on this list, but it deserves to be here nonetheless. 2021, Shu saves the Gladiators. It had to be here, didn't it? If Shu isn't at the top of your list when you talk about the best flex supports in Overwatch history, we advise you to take another look back at 2021. Not only does Shu deserve his place as an icon of Overwatch Esports for his incredible tenure, his longevity at the highest level, and for his impressive statistics, but his jaw-dropping clutch to effectively win the LA Gladiators their first ever stage title was one of the best highlight plays of the year and possibly of the Overwatch League era. On a Cinderella run of their own, the Chengdu Hunters round out the second point of Havana with a minute to spare. That, along with Jinmu's Dragon Blade paired with Xerneas' Rally would, and on any other day probably should, have been enough to win the map and the set. However, a quick flank and a risky amplification matrix that was only ever going to be of use for Shu and Shu alone meant the flex support legend not only managed to draw out some of those crucial ultimates, but also stop the Hunters just shy of the second checkpoint, giving his team time to get back into the fight and make sure that the ult advantage has swung back their way. We've seen supports land clutch abilities to swing fights and even find a few kills to push their team back from the brink, but no one support has ever hard carried a fight like this. 2022, Pelican at the Kickoff clash. Pelican probably owns the most terrifying highlight reel in Overwatch history, and it isn't particularly close. His expertise on Hanzo to not only sustain, but to push the Houston Outlaws over the line during the Kickoff clash in 2022 was legendary. But if we had to pick a moment, it'd be this one. With just over a minute left on the clock, the Houston Outlaws had to escort the push bot across the map and somehow find 30 more meters to secure a win and keep their lower bracket dreams alive. A desperate nano boost and 5 kills in a nearly 20-second window later, and it quickly becomes obvious the skill, dexterity, and game sense required to be one of the game's biggest stars. Overwatch is often criticised for its lack of FPS elements, but Pelican put on a masterclass, showing just how much you can exercise your will in a game of Overwatch with just a bow and arrow, and drag even the bleakest scenarios back into your favour. And that is, after all, what Overwatch is all about. So there we go, the greatest and most iconic moments in the history of Overwatch Esports, as picked by us at GGRecon, of course. Disagree? Have we missed a moment you can't believe hasn't made the list? Let us know down in the comments, and if you want some more Overwatch League lists, check out this video on the best Overwatch League teams ever.